discourage pictures in the polling stations because we want to preserve the sanctity of and the privacy of the voter. And if this can be done in a manner that does not expose, then the commission can have deliberations with stakeholders and see how that can be provided in terms of just taking an image of the result. We can discuss how we can do it. I don't know whether the legal team of IEBC will be in agreement, but I think we can discuss that. Okay? Result transmission simulation challenges. I don't know, somebody has a hand up and I'm still responding.
Thank you. Just one interjection. I think the issue of saying that we cannot have cameras in the polling station because you want to respect the sanctity of the secret vote. Nobody is taking pictures in the booth where the person is. That is where it's not allowed. But in terms of taking the result form or taking a video of the returning officer making the announcement, I think we are permitted to do that.
I thought I said we will sit with you guys and agree on a protocol. Is that a problem? Okay? I didn't say otherwise. Okay? In terms of results simulation, of course, it was a simulation, and a simulation is to test. And when you test, it can either pass or not pass. We did a simulation. There were a few challenges. One of the main challenges was that all our MNOs, mobile network operators, were not on board. They had some logistics in terms of moving some of the kits to the far distant counties where the testing was to result transmission was to happen. So we had a few challenges, and we had internally said we will redo it again. And so when we are having learned lessons from that, the challenges that we had, so we will advise you accordingly. Now, yes, the GPS coordinates of all polling stations will be shared with political parties. We actually gave GPS coordinates to the Communication Authority, and that is how they mapped out polling stations or polling centers that are outside 3G coverage areas. So this can be shared with political parties. Public portal accessibility, I will leave to Marjan to address that. In terms of agents, one agent per party not being enough. We have classrooms as our polling stations. And you know our primary schools, how small the classrooms are. We have elective positions where, for example, in MCA, in the last election, in the range of 40 candidates. Just one elective position. And we have a huge number of independent candidates. So if each candidate is to have an agent, that classroom will be congested. Again, we need to have a discussion on how to better manage the agenting process so that the poll officials and the agents can be accommodated in the classrooms that we have. It is not our intention to shut out anybody's agent, but we need to operate within the spaces that we use as polling stations. Now, the question was asked, how do we ensure the 6 ballot papers that you give to a voter is accounted for? It is the Commission's desire that ballot papers issued to a voter are all placed in respective ballot boxes. We've even made it easier to match the color of the ballot paper with the lid of the ballot box. And this is for purposes of ensuring that the voters are guided. And part of our trainings is to ask our presiding officers to ensure that ballot papers issued are put in respective boxes. If you don't want any candidate, leave it blank, but put in the respective ballot box. But sometimes the reason earlier on when we were discussing the issue of the register, the reason why we are saying putting more emphasis on the digital register is because when there is this manual register, if in that particular locality is a stronghold of a particular, for example, presidential candidate, and if they cannot agree on the other seats, at least they agree on a presidential candidate. So in that respect, they may issue ballot papers of a presidential candidate and put in the presidential ballot box, and they may not bother with the others. So this sometimes makes a disparity between the figures of voters for presidential and the other candidates. And hence, it's part of the reasons why we are saying, let's have more on the digital. Our focus should be more on the digital register than the ballot, the physical ballot paper, register of voters. So we will train, it's a matter for training, we will train our presiding officers to ensure that the 6 ballot papers issued to a voter are all accounted for in the different ballot boxes. There were issues about somebody asking people in hospitals their right to vote. I think there's so much the Commission can do. We have designated, gazetted polling stations. We cannot convert every hospital bed to be a polling station. And we have no capacity to bring every 6th patient in a hospital to come to a ballot, to come and vote in a polling station. It is a shared responsibility. As Kenyans, if you have relatives, friends that are able, that can be taken to vote, we will be more than happy to welcome them to the polling station and to facilitate their voting. Reference was made to the 1,111 polling centers with no 3G and perhaps what arrangements we are doing. We've had similar incidents in 2017, and as I've always responded to on this matter, funds allowing, we will deploy satellite modems to ensure that we have coverage in terms of network connectivity in those areas to facilitate transmission of the image of the result forms. In terms of API access, I'll leave it to Marjan. You can deal with that. And also handle that together with the stress test for simulation in terms of the digital images that comes to our servers. On the cloud storage, is it locally? We are not using any cloud storage this time. We are using our resources within the territory of Kenya. We are not outside the country. And so, in the event that there will be a cloud, it will be a cloud within the Kenyan space. But for now, our focus is on the infrastructure that we have deployed to be used within the country in terms of the primary and secondary data centers that we have in the country. The issue of all data in MOFO and the transmission of data from one service provider to the other, you can, Marjan, address that. As well as the geofencing of kits. Of course, geofencing, as you rightly put it, can only happen once they are online. But the beauty with the kit